All right, y'all, we're back here again. Server recap part two. So we're gonna continue right off where we left off. All right, so bear with me on this little message here. So I said here is stop satisfying something permanent to satisfy something that will pass. Right. So basically, what I got from here is like something permanent. Right. God. God is always here. Always will be. Has been here eternally. Right. So we stop satisfying Him for a second. Right. And then we start satisfying something in the flesh, right? Fleshly desires, right? Whether that could be sex or lust or, anxiety, all sorts of sins, right? We stop and allow stuff like that. Trials and errors get to us, right? That all comes back to something that can pass, right? We start to satisfy certain things in our life that can pass, right? When we need to be satisfying something that is always here, that is permanent, right? And that comes back to God, right? And that rounds us back to the first part, right? About trials and tribulations that we're going through, right? That is something that goes back to trials and tribulations that we're going through, right? And that comes back to something that will pass, right? And it all comes back to our minds of when we think instead of thinking about God thoughts of like, oh, no, God said this will pass. I have to get that through my brain, right? And that comes back to these things are just parts, right? Back to the top, right? Which is the message here. At the whole message overall is saying the hardest part is behind you. Now we just need to accept and receive that. And the process of accept and receiving that resolves us not doing I thoughts, right? And that comes back to the 1 Corinthians, verse 13. We're just talking about when it's talking about I thought like a child and childish things, but I became a man or I became a woman, whatever it could be, right? And so it's hard. And it's hard. It's hard spiritually. I wish we could everybody could just be like, ever since they grew up that they all became spiritually well and everything, right? It's not easy, right? It's not going to be easy, right? But you got to trust that God's going to work with you, right? But you got to be willing to work with Him, So, second part we went into was Second Kings, chapter 5, 4. We're going to read verses 4 and 14, okay? So, it says here, so Naaman went and told his master what the girl from the land of Israel had said. Therefore, the king of Aram said, go, and I will send a letter with you to the king of Israel. So he went and took with him 750 pounds of silver, 150 pounds of gold, and 10 sets of clothing. He brought the letter to the king of Israel, and it read, when the letter comes to you, note that I have sent you my servant Naaman for you to cure him of his skin disease, right? Now, think about this. So what he's telling here in this story that Naaman, you know how much it is to how hard it is to go to an enemy for help, right? So that was just something that stuck out to me. But anyways, we can continue to read, So for my servant Naaman, for you to cure him of his skin disease, right? And then we continue on. It says here, when the king of Israel read the letter, he tore his clothes and asked, am I God killing and giving life that this man expects me to cure a man of his skin disease? Recognize that he is only picking a fight with me. When Elisha, the man of God, heard the king of Israel had tore his clothes, he sent the message to the king. Why have you torn your clothes? Have him come to me, and he will know that there is a prophet in Israel. So Naaman came with his horses and chariots and stood at the door of Elijah's house. Then Elijah sent him a messenger who said, go wash 7 times in the Jordan, and your skin will be restored and you will be clean. But Naaman got angry and left, saying, I was telling myself. There's ding, ding, ding problem right here. He's thinking of I thoughts, right? He's thinking of I thought that, look, listen to this. He says, I was telling myself he will surely come out and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God and wave his hand over the place and cure the skin disease. He's thinking, it's like he thinks he's a scientist, right? He thinks he's got He knows how God's going to do this, right? I got the thoughts of how God is going to play, right? So he's not thinking through. He's not thinking all the way through, right? Because if you're thinking all the way through, you would have thought how God is going to play through this, right? Not how he will do it, right? Because you don't know how God works, right? So that takes me to the point what I said here is you can't script the way God moves and works, right? Some thoughts God isn't going to wave at you, right? Sometimes he's already made it clear point right here. So like listen right here. So right here 10 says Elijah sent him a messenger who said, go wash 7 times in the Jordan and your skin will be restored and you will be clean, right? The messenger that's God already talking to you right there, right? It's like sometimes we ignore the messenger when it's already there, right? The messenger might already be there, but we're so caught up in our thoughts that we miss the message. Come on, y'all. So, let's continue to read, all right? So, verse 12 says, aren't Abana Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? Couldn't I wash in them and be clean? So he turned and left in a rage. So then we can read verse 13, which says here, but his servants approached him and said to him, my father, if the prophet had told you to do some great thing, would you have not done it? Let's read that one more time. But his servants approached and said to him, my father, if the prophet had told you to do some great thing, would you have not done it? How much more should you do when he only tells you to wash and clean? So boom, it's like when God tells us something, right? Why are we hesitating to do it, right? This is where I was getting from. I was like, why is we hesitating to do it? What is the worst thing we could do when God tells us to do something, right? And in this case, what the pastor was talking about it was like basically you could be healed, right? So like the downside of him not answering the call was like you'll just be clean, right? The positive part of it, right? You'll be cured. So what do you have to lose, right? So that's kind of what had me thinking in my brain. It's like, oh, well, when God calls me to do something, the negative is not really even get negative, right? It's just the enemy is trying to think. It's like the enemy tries to think that you will have a negative outcome when you try to follow a God calling, right? You know, and so then verse 14 says here. So Naaman went down and dipped himself in the Jordan 7 times according to the command of the man of God. Then his skin was restored and became like the skin of a small boy, and he was clean. Y'all, look, you see how God works? Like that is crazy. He was healed, right? He was healed. And so another note I had was, what was it? Don't get blocked by something that is behind you, right? That one was like, oh my gosh. Like, don't get blocked by something that is behind you, right? Something that is behind you, right? Something the hard things that is already behind you, right? Don't get blocked. Like, don't allow them to try to come back into your life and stop you from what you're doing with your walk with Christ, right? That's just the enemy trying to creep back into you. Y'all know how I love to do my door reference, right? It's when it's like you're knocking on the door for God, right? And God's protecting you, right? But if we creep the door a little bit, like the enemy is trying to get in, right? We creep the door open a little bit, right? We leave enough room for the enemy to get in, right? So that's why I come back to the points, right? We got to be fully in for God, right? It can't be 98, 97, 96, 95, 94, 93, 92, 99. Y'all get the point, right? 100%. Got to be 100% in for God, right? And then I think I'm gonna make a part 3. I got 3 little sayings I'm gonna say, and I'm gonna finish it off. All right, so I'll be back, y'all.